want to dive more into some other blockchain innovations and kind of dovetail off something that you were just talking about, a seizure of property.
Sure.
One of the things that scares me about Bitcoin, about blockchain technology, is kind of that transparent, open, immutable ledger, where if we get to the point where states can kind of link you to the wallet addresses, or they can look at a coin and they can say, hey, at some point along the way, this was used to fund terrorist activities or something along those lines. With a lot of the overstepping of rights that we've seen with the Patriot Act, it's not unrealistic to say at one point a Bitcoin was used to fund terrorist activity. A couple years down the line, you have it, and somehow it gets seized from you. That's a scary thought. One of the best solutions that I have personally seen to this, and I know that you actually spoke to the PIVX developers approximately a month ago, Zero Coin Protocol. What did you talk to the developers about, and what specifically are your thoughts on Zero Coin?
All right, so let's start with the abstract and move to the particular. I always like doing that. The problem with interviewing a mathematician is that's the route we always go. In the abstract, privacy is a really interesting concept in that you don't even know what ought to be private until you know. And I'll give a great example of that. So let's look at Iraq. So during the reign of Saddam Hussein, the only way you could be somebody is being a member of the Ba'ath Party. Okay? And what did that mean? You had to be very public about it. You know, wear the uniform, show up at the rallies, make sure that everybody knows you're a member, so then you can get the good jobs. You can go to the good colleges. Your children can have the good future. Okay? Then all of a sudden, America takes over, and Bremer and the rest of the crew come in, they de-Ba'athify the country. And they say, if you're a member of the Ba'ath Party, you can't serve in the government. It's the same thing happened to a lesser extent in Nazi Germany, where, you know, the only way to be somebody is be a Nazi, and then all of a sudden we denazified the country, and now that hurt your opportunities, especially the higher up in the party you were. So you go from a paradigm where being public about your affiliation, your beliefs, or some characteristic about you is beneficial, so you broadcast it as much as possible, then the paradigm shifts, and now you're on the other side of history. And it's actually a massive detriment, and you wish you could erase that history. So it's extremely important to understand that privacy is not just a snapshot today in this part of history. Privacy has a long arc, and things that you think are totally fine to be public today may end up destroying you in the future. So what does that mean? It means that by default, things about you, as much as possible, especially your financial history, ought to be anonymous. And the only way they get de-anonymized is with your consent, or in circumstances where the market demands it and you've consented to that ahead of time. Okay? That's a very libertarian way of viewing privacy. And there's certainly a large spectrum of people that have feelings one way or the other. And, you know, we've had this debate many times. Now let's talk about cryptocurrencies and privacy in general. Okay, so it's not just good enough to say that I have made my cryptocurrency private by strengthening the linkability, the delinkability guarantees. In other words, connecting that pseudonymous key to Alice or Bob. That's just not good enough. Why? Because you might not know that this particular address belongs to Alice or Bob, but you'll know Alice is a user because she hasn't obfuscated the network stack. You'll know that Bob is a user. And just by being a user could potentially be incriminating. You know, if, for example, let's say you live in a country where homosexuality is illegal, you might not know what Alice is doing in the gay club, but the very fact that you know she went into the gay club might demonize her or you know, and substitute your favorite religion. Let's say you're in Egypt and they're going anti-Christian on people. The very fact that Bob goes into the church, maybe he went in and asked for directions, who knows? But the fact he's there, now you're going to get killed or arrested and imprisoned. Okay, so you also have to anonymize the use of the protocol in some way. Then the other thing is, who do people target? So if you're an official and you're looking to crack down on people, make an example, you don't pick grandma who's done $5 worth of damage. You pick some very visible, very sexy target that's flaunting its nose. So what you do is you just order things and you say, who's the worst offender? The biggest tax cheat, the biggest theft, whatever. Okay, so you also have a situation that when you are on a blockchain, you send value from Alice to Bob, we know how much money is being transmitted from Alice to Bob. So if I'm going to selectively isolate particular transactions and look very deeply at those transactions, I'm going to look at the highest value ones. So it's good to also anonymize the amounts being sent. And there are schemes like confidential transactions, for example, which can do this. So linkability, the use of the protocol, and also the amounts being sent. These are kind of your three pillars of anonymity. And all of them are incredibly important. And I think that there's some great protocols being developed which give you some or all of these things. Like Dandelion helps you a little bit on the network side of things. There's been advancements in confidential transactions, which are good. And linkability is really the domain of things like Zcoin and Zcash. Now, what in particular did I talk to the PIVX team about? It was more of a courtesy call. Anytime anybody's involved in privacy and anytime anybody's involved in treasury, I want to meet the team because we're in the treasury business. We're also in the privacy business. And we may have some open source protocol that we've created that I would love to share and have them implement, especially a treasury, because that's a great funding model for me. It's like creating a bunch of miniature national science foundations where I can now propose ballots to fund research and things, and I don't have to have a corporate sponsorship or a government give me money. So I want PIVX to be successful. I want Dash to be successful. I want ETC to get a treasury and be successful. And then for the rest of my life, I can run IOHK just off of working for blockchains. It's the most honest business in the world then. And I feel real good about that. But we did have some conversations about the philosophy of privacy, about their direction and their roadmap and where they want to go. And I think they have some good ideas.